Hi, I finished reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi. It's a memoir chronicling her life under the Islamic regime. Azar Nafisi is an English professor, and she would talk about her literature classes as well. And she also talks about books, Gatsby, Henry James, Lolita, and Jane Austen. We get a glimpse inside her students' lives and how they feel and where they are at in their lives. And they're all different people. They all come from different families. They have slightly different beliefs and wants and how this regime now is affecting them. Then they would have these back and forth in her living room, and we get to witness that. We can know the facts because we have not known our life for that long under that oppressive system. We don't really understand their motivation. It's the power of art and artists. Like, they make you look at things in a different way. Like, take compulsory hijab, for example. It doesn't even matter what religion you believe in. You just have to observe the hijab. The author talks about this homogenization of women. However, like, their personality is gone now, right? And then this girl talked about how because she had to observe the compulsory hijab, she doesn't know who she is. Like, if she had the choice, would she have taken up hijab or would she not have? Would she be a different person? She doesn't know herself. There is a sense of no identity when you look in the mirror. So initially, I was very upset and mad at just discovering the facts. Like, oh, books are censored just because there is adultery, just because there is a word wine in the book. Adultery is a real life thing. It's gonna happen. It made me remember from Heart Lamp by Banu Mushtaq how Muslim women were kind of told toxically, obviously, hey, love your husband or he will get another wife, right? So adultery is a real thing. And if you don't talk about it, it doesn't make it disappear. And this idea that we have to ban fiction, which has adultery, men who earn money by swindling, like Gatsby, for example, should we? Because it's like a bad example and a westernized, or should we understand that fiction is not a manual guide to live your life? And yeah, she talks about books in a way that correlates to their life. And she makes a point of saying how these books are democratic. And I really, really enjoyed her commentary, especially on Lolita and Jane Austen. She has so much respect for Nabokov because I haven't read it, so all the knowledge I have of Lolita is from pop culture, right? And she made a case of how Lolita is a victim, and when we read the book Lolita, we are reading it from the eyes of the pervert pedo man, and how Lolita isn't even given a voice, and then we, the reader, judges Lolita. Lolita is just a child. And in Austen, she talks about how courting is like a dance. When you're courting, when you're dating, right, there needs to be constant back and forth and constant adjustments, to your partner, and someone who is bad at the dance floor in that book, because the book has like lots of balls and stuff, bad at courting. This book has empathy, has honesty, has understanding, and that's enough for me to make it a good book. She even talks about how she's resentful towards her husband. He doesn't have to wear a hijab just to preserve his job. His life is less affected by the regime than hers is, so of course she resents him a little bit. So there's this honesty in this book that is very human. There is empathy, there is this wanting to understand other people. One thing I really enjoyed, like how there is this network of people, this community. Whenever there are bombs and stuff, people phone each other to check up on, hey, we heard sounds from that area, are you guys okay? And because of those literature classes, she is confidant to the girls that she teaches, and she is able to observe how different people feel living under this regime. How does a girl who was already observing the hijab feels now that everyone is forced to do that? Someone says to that girl, hey, why does it even matter? You were doing the hijab pre-regime as well, so it must be easy for you, right? And then the girl replies that, no, it's not actually. And then she gets to talk about her little everyday daily life things are an act of rebellion. Nail polish is an act of rebellion. A strand of hair showing is an act of rebellion. Oh, I just want to have a normal life. I am a normal young person. I just want to have a boyfriend. That's an act of rebellion. Political and personal is so intertwined. After the revolution life, is it the same as you guys who were for the revolution imagined it would be? Like, is this what you had in mind? But anyways, the students who are for the Islamic revolution, they dismiss Henry James. The author says the reason is because they don't understand him. And that's kind of how I feel when a straight man dismisses trans people, for example. Since I am already talking about trans people in a book that talks about the Islamic Revolution, how funny, haha, I will also mention how there are parallels. While I was reading this book, that trans right bill in India came out, so the parallels were there in my mind. How these girls were subjected to, had to go through the humiliation of getting your bags checked, the guards checking if you're properly dressed before class, how trans people feel the same humiliation. And they have to go to that bathroom and stand in that queue just to get a basic bachelor's degree. The enjoyable bits were Gatsby versus the Islamic Republic of Iran court that they held. The back and forth of conversation and getting to see both sides of the argument. I was taking everything as the gospel truth. How much is it true? Not that I believe that fact and fiction are opposites. They're not. If anything, fiction brings us closer to the fact. But I just read it. Like, hey, she talks about the age of consent being reduced to 9-year-old. Is that true? And someone said, yeah, just the names and stuff have been changed because you have to do that. And I wonder how dangerous it is, to tell the truth. Even if you move to the West, are you safe? Because Salman Rushdie exists and his eye doesn't. So yeah, I really liked the book. I now want an English literature teacher like Azar Nafisi, and I now want more than ever to get a degree in English Lit. Would I be able to get more from my books if I did? This book officially becomes the book that I have researched the most about. I listen to a lot of podcasts just to be able to understand the history of Iran. And people have gone through so much. After the Islamic Revolution, Iran was at war with Iraq for 8 years, and even chemical weapons were used, and it's just so much pain. So I highly recommend this book to understand human beings, to have some empathy, to understand how a people lived in a certain time period, not too long ago. And you get to know about a culture. Like, I didn't know how Persian tea glasses look, but I know now. So highly recommend, actually.